Hi, this is Sergeant Betsy Brantner Smith with the National Police Association, and this is the National Police Association podcast. I have a guest with me today who has this amazing social media presence, and I started watching one of her videos, and then I watched another one, and then I watched another one, and I think it was like an hour later when I said I have to find out more about what this woman and her company are doing. So I reached out to her. She immediately reached back, and so she's here to share with all of us what she's doing online and in person when it comes to helping citizens, cops, veterans understand the use of deadly force. Samantha Borgos, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So I got to tell you first and foremost. So my daughter's she's an Instagram influencer, so I'm pretty bougie about
Wow.
people's social media presence, and yours is fantastic. And is especially as a woman, when I watch some of the things that you're doing, it's just incredibly engaging, and you make carrying a firearm for a civilian, especially for a woman, um, seems so effortless. How do you do that?
I really appreciate that. I like to call my content edutainment. So it's educating you along the ride of some deliberate entertainment, right? And yeah, I would say for me, I didn't start off knowing a thing about firearms. I think to understand how I got to my social media presence, which I like to say it was completely by accident. But I can kind of get into my background, if you will, because that kind of gives the full picture as to how I even got to where I'm at now. Um,
I think that's
so
perfect because again, you're not some, woo woo girl who came out of third grade with an AR-15 in your hand and all that. Tell us about your background and how you got involved in what you're doing now.
Yeah. So, for any of the listeners that don't know, what I'm mostly known for these days online is open carrying a firearm into different stores, different popular stores, whether, they have different beliefs or not. Of course, I abide by the law, but there I get very known and lots of views for open carrying in different publicly known stores, whether it's Saks Fifth Avenue to Whole Foods to et cetera, right? And I film some of the reactions. I film whether or not if I'm going to get kicked out, if I'm going to get asked to leave. And then sometimes people randomly high five me. It could be a random employee, it could be somebody walking in the store. And I started filming these reactions. But the funny part, so that's, if you don't know my social media, that is what I'm pretty much known for. And then I like to mix in some educational content of how to even get to the point where you are confident, whether that's a concealed carrier, a home defender, or an open carrier. I like to post a lot of content in between those funny reaction videos, just so people can start to gain their confidence with carrying a firearm. But the funny part about that is, so Florida, I'm in Florida, and Florida, as of September 25th, our governor DeSantis just changed, or it went through a process, and he okayed it that we can now open carry in Florida. So I, being a co-founder with my husband of a very known self-defense training company, I of course have guns. I carry guns all the time, and I said, well, let me just experiment open carrying because it's so new to, I mean, you guys are in Arizona, you've had open carry for a long time. But it's so new in Florida, right? And I'm not in the main city area. I am in more of a residential area of Florida and whatnot. And I said, you know what, let me just experiment. And I just threw up my camera and I said, let me just film it and see, because maybe my clients will want to see. And I posted it on Instagram, and I completely forgot that I even posted that. Because again, at the time, I didn't really, I think I had 1,000 followers or something, and nobody cares, And I signed online a few hours later, and I had like 100,000 views on this post. And I said, maybe I'm onto something, and I don't care to be an Instagram influencer. That was not my objective. I have a business. I'm running a business, but I said, maybe this could be kind of inspiring to other people, especially women, because I always felt what I represent is, when I started getting into shooting, and again, I can tell you about me in a second, but just for anybody listening, when I started getting into shooting, I was completely new. And I would look at the women shooting, and they either looked like they belonged in the CrossFit gym, which I don't do. And, just very tactical, very muscular, very more masculine or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other extreme was they just looked like flimsy and like they didn't know what they were doing or something with a gun, like, which was me at the time. I didn't know anything. And I was like, I don't relate to either one of this. So I feel what I represent, and for my students too, is that you can be feminine. You can be, I like the girly things. I like fashion. I like makeup. I like all the things, right? And you can still be extremely confident and safe and capable with a firearm. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to be this super tactical person or something. And, so it's like, I felt, hey, let me just start recording some videos showing in use how to, be a carrier. And then lo and behold, I have a whole series of open carry videos, and I'm shocked, honestly. So that's what I have more recently gotten known for. And the funny thing is, people will come up to me locally and say, "Are you the girl that if I'm not open, are you the girl that open carries at my local coffee shop?" I said, "Yeah, that's me." And they were like, "Well, why aren't you open carrying now? Can you do one here?" And okay. So it's been kind of a journey.
I love it. So what was your real job before all this?
Well, I would say, so about 10 years ago, I had a marketing and branding agency. So I know a thing or two about videos, to say the least. I was a creative director for personal brands and all that. I had a marketing agency and a business partner at the time, and we had lots of clients. And this was, Instagram, and the internet was totally different than the way it is now. It's so fast paced and always evolving. And so I would say about 7 years ago, my husband, who also at the time had a whole nother business. He was a United States, he is a United States Marine, but he's since out. He did some civilian work for a while. He had a whole nother business out of the quote unquote war fighting world for a while. Mm-hmm. And, a series of events happened, and he, unfortunately, the Stoneham Douglas Parkland shooting happened locally. Mm-hmm. And he has 4 daughters. And long story short, he said to me, "I have this idea." And I said, "What's the idea?" He says, "It's called the Warrior Workshop." And I was like, "The Warrior Workshop? That sounds kind of cool. What is it?" And again, I was very new to shooting. Like, our first date 12 years ago he took me to the shooting range. That was how we met. I heard that he is a Marine. I heard that he teaches people how to shoot guns, and I heard he's single. So that checked all the boxes for me. We went on a first date to a shooting range, and I moved in with him within 10 days. And that's a true story. But that, a few years into our relationship, he said, "Hey, I got this idea. It's called the Warrior Workshop." I was like, "Oh, what is it?" And "I want to teach civilians." All this stuff was going around in Florida, and it was just a weird time. And he said, "I want to teach civilians how to be capable, but not the way everybody's doing it." Right. Mm. And again, in the tactical world, and I'm sure you know this, in the tactical industry, it's one of two things. It's the super tactical, play Navy SEAL for the day, which is cool. I'm not knocking that. That's fun. It's like plate carriers and night vision, and you get to be a dad and run and gun or something. Mm. And then the other extreme, at least in Florida, I can speak for, is it's just go get your concealed carry license real quick. You take this couple hour class, if that, you might shoot maybe a magazine, worth of ammo, and that's it. You're a concealed carrier. And so we found.
And let me just say this. I can't tell you how many women I know who, especially, here in Arizona, but other places as well, who some guy talks them into some giant framed handgun and they do exactly what you just said. They go get their concealed carry, or, here in Arizona, you can open carry, but they bring it home. They're scared to death of it. They put it in their underwear drawer and they never look at it again.
Right.
And, I think that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, you go out, you buy a gun, you're like, okay, I'm a good American, I own my firearm, and that's as far as you take it. But the reality of actually having to use that firearm is a completely different reality and a completely different purpose to train. And so my husband's genius is practical application. He was a weapons and tactics instructor in the military, in the Marine Corps. He was a, gunner instructor, but it was beyond that. His true genius and his true is the heart, is getting people to the reality of, hey, if you do need to use this, this is the reality of the situation. And it's not fear-based. Look, there's great people that defend themselves every day. There's nothing to fear. It's just, but this is the reality of the intensity that you have to train for. So he came up with this warrior workshop, which was just called the Warrior Workshop at the time. And then I was the first student. So I knew very little about guns. I looked at the gun on the kitchen table. I'd think it would jump out and shoot me if I looked at it wrong. That's how much I knew about guns at the time. So like I said, this was about 10 years ago or so. So then I took the Warrior Workshop. It was like me and like maybe some friends and family, in the workshop. And at the end of the day, it was an 8-hour day. I said, Alex, this is not about guns. I was like, what the hell did you just create? Like, you're on to something here. And everybody in the class, all of our friends and family said, well, when's the level 2? Because this was just one workshop. We thought, all right, we'll do this on a random once a month or something, Yeah. And everyone said, when's level 2? And he said, I don't know, next weekend. And everybody signed up for the level 2. Well, lo and behold, now we have 5 levels and it's very successful and whatnot. But the biggest thing that we say that's important for people to know is it's where personal protection meets personal development. Because, and this, right? It's about training who you need to be in that moment. And you might not even have a gun as a civilian. Let's say you don't have a gun on you. Well, you still need to defend yourself. You still need to protect your family. You know what I mean? So if you've got and you've got the fortitude and the character and the courage to actually get that job down, my husband always says, if you know your why, you'll figure out how. So
yeah, that's exactly what we teach cops, that winning mindset, that warrior mindset, which in American law enforcement, there are since about 2014, that word warrior has gotten such a bad connotation in law enforcement.
Oh, yeah.
To the point that the state of Minnesota has a law on the books that you cannot do what they call warrior training. And
my God,
guys like my husband, Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman, they are what is known as warrior trainers, and they're not supposed to set foot in states like Minnesota or California. It's ridiculous. That word warrior, I'm so glad to hear you utilize that.
Wow.
Because in law enforcement, it's gotten such a bad reputation among, dare I say, the ignorant left.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the name of our company is Sovereign Self-Defense, and we're called the Warrior Workshop. So I don't know. We've got a few comments about that here and there, but it is, transformational experience to say the least. And that's the reality, right? It's preparing for the reality and the brutal facts of what, and again, it's not fear-based. It's just without courage, what does the world look like? And without
Absolutely.
good men and women defending that integrity of the country, of yourself, and it's interesting because, during 2020 and that time, we always ask people right when they come into the training, we say, why are you here? Why are you taking the workshop? What made you sign up? Da, da, da. And a lot of times people say, oh, the country, oh my God, the country. And we get it, but the reality is it doesn't really matter who's in office. When you're talking about a home invasion, it happens whether or not you like the president or not, right? Or whether or not you like your government, it doesn't matter. home invasions, armed robberies, gas station robberies, these crimes of opportunity happen every single day in nice neighborhoods and bad neighborhoods. And politics is really not as much involved in the man to man of it. You know what I'm saying? So it's like develop yourself, learn to protect yourself. And the more that you are capable to defend your own personal security and body, then you can start worrying about these high minded things like politics. But if you don't actually know how to defend yourself, then it's like a yappy dog in your mind.
Well, and to that end, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, the National Police Association, we are the most pro citizen carry, pro Second Amendment police organization in this country, because we're realistic enough to understand that, because most, especially big city police departments, but most police departments are short staffed. Cops are not sitting in front of your house waiting to stop that home invasion. They're not sitting next to you on the train waiting to save you from somebody. They're not sitting next to you in the coffee shop or the gas station when an armed robber comes in. And
Right.
and so that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, was because a lot of times I think citizens, and especially women and senior citizens, are told, well, you just got to wait for the police, call the police. The police will help you. Yeah, the police, we're there to help you, but we're probably not right there when you need us.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a big, reality check for a lot of people, myself included, when I first started in this industry, because, I was just talking to you about how we started the business. What ended up happening for me is my husband and I sold everything 10 years ago. I mean, to do this full time, we were like, we just have to do this. And I left my marketing agency. I sold everything. So did my husband. And we've been doing this full time ever since. And it's worked extremely well for us. We're very fortunate. But to your point, a lot of what I went through as a student and what we have to educate people when they come in is, you always think, and I think we're conditioned from school, like call 911 as a little 5-year-old. If
Right.
something ever happens to mommy, you got to call 911. And that might work in certain aspects, right? And yes, we obviously train people to call 911. But here's the reality. If somebody comes into your house at 2 o'clock in the morning and they're armed, and usually home invasions, we find multiple people. It's not usually a single person. That's a different level of crime. Mm-hmm. But let's talk about like the breaking and entering, the fast paced, aggressive, and forced entry home invasion is multiple people are armed, and you're in your underwear at 2 o'clock in the morning and you wake up flustered and you go for your gun. You got to handle the situation in front of you before you can even get on the phone. And a lot of the surveillance photos, or excuse me, a lot of the surveillance footage that we see is people having their phone in their hand and their gun in the other hand, and they're trying to call 911 and they're trying to neutralize the threat at the same exact time. And that doesn't work. You got to get your full attention in the fight. You got to get your hands on the weapon. You might need to get loved ones out of the way. I mean, it's a dynamic scenario, and I could show tons and tons of video of people just in that fight or flight trying to get on the phone and trying to call 911. It's like, no, you got to get in the fight. At that point, you don't have an option. If you have an option and you can go barricade and you can secure yourself and you can get on the phone and call the cops, then absolutely do it. But there's so many scenarios where you can't call the cops until unfortunately it's done. The fight's over. And then you got to call the cops. And so there's such we call them training scars. There's such a training scar in society that we think that, oh, we'll just call the cops and they'll come and they'll handle it. It's like, no, as a citizen, as a civilian, we have the right to be our own first responder in America. And that's what we want to push, is the reality of how important that is.
Oh, absolutely. And I and you and I were talking about this before we started the show. There are certain things, there's kind of a procedure that you teach citizens who have had to use deadly force, what to do legally, to protect themselves legally, to protect themselves physically, because after you've used deadly force as a citizen, the police are ultimately going to come at some point.
Yeah.
Whether you're in your own home or you're out in the public, you've got to interact appropriately with law enforcement. And frankly, law enforcement is there to make sure everything's safe and all that stuff. But then they're there also to look at this shooting scenario where you're the shooter, and they've got to act, from a law perspective, if you will. And there's certain things that citizens need to do to protect themselves legally. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that we always train our students is put yourself into the other perspective of law enforcement, right? So law enforcement gets this call, hey, you got to respond over here, gets the address and sends a team. That might be all they know, right? It's not like they have a full briefing on the entire situation of
Right.
what just happened. Nobody knows. Everybody's in the unknown. So law enforcement, they're in fight or flight too. They're like, oh crap, I might be going to a gunfight. What do I know? You know what I mean? So they come in, they're hot, and they don't know who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. They haven't assessed the situation yet. So now you're a good guy and you're assuming everybody just sees you as the good guy, but nobody knows. They don't know yet. So what we train is, completely comply. You might end up, just be quiet. That adrenaline dump, is real. And there's only so much that you can train for, right? That level of adrenaline, that fight or flight of what the body goes into. And you do have to use that level of force. You might be black. You might not even remember, completely. So what we always say is just train yourself to shut the heck up for that moment. And ideally, you have some level of an attorney that you can reach out to and let them handle it. Cool down for 24 hours. Now, law enforcement, they might need to arrest you for the moment or whatever the procedure is that they need to do. That's okay. That's okay. Ultimately, what you know what I'm saying? You know that you are a good guy and you know that you complied within the law and you were in self-defense and you were scared for your life. I was scared for my life. I was scared for my life. And that's, at the end of the day, if you're scared for your life and you're within the law, then you have to do what you have to do. But what we always train our students is just completely comply, because you have to put yourself in their perspective, in the law enforcement's perspective of what they're showing up to. And they're in the complete unknown as well. And
That's
then from there,
exactly
let the lawyers handle it.
exactly. And that's what we teach off-duty police officers. We have there's over 200 police officers on the Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Wall in Washington, D.C., who were killed taking action off duty.
Wow.
And sadly, a few of them took what we call blue fire, where, they had to take action off duty. Then the uniform showed up, and mistakes were made. And,
Mm-hmm.
we don't want that to happen to anyone. And we certainly don't want it to happen to our civilians who, again, are exercising their Second Amendment rights, because we are, and it's not just in big cities. There's crime virtually everywhere, and we do all have to be prepared to take action to save ourselves, to protect our families, to know. And the law is very different depending on, again,
Yeah.
Florida, Arizona, Mississippi, different states like that have pretty citizen friendly laws, I guess I would say, when it comes to
Yeah.
the Second Amendment. uh, the state of Illinois, for example, where I hail from, we didn't even have citizen carry until
Right.
about 2013. And so and that's why, that was one of the reasons I was so fascinated by your open carry um, videos, was because for the entire 29 years I was a police officer, if you saw someone openly carrying a gun, uh, we arrested you unless you were a police officer, or there were a few tiny exceptions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and other than that, boy, you were going to jail because you couldn't open carry a firearm. What I've got to ask you, because I've seen, didn't you go to Sephora, and that's one of my favorites. What kind of reactions like what's the craziest reaction you've gotten to open carrying in a place that might be a little wigged out by it?
Well, the craziest reaction that I got was probably at in the physical store was probably Whole Foods. Um, and again, this was early when I started making the videos, so the law just changed. People were not used to open carry; they're still not used to it.
Yeah.
But it's funny because I use this as like a case study, right? So one of them, just a couple instances. One instance is people just absolutely have no clue I'm even carrying. Now I carry, I dress appropriately. There's a whole protocol when I am open carrying and I'm recording a video. And I want to make that clear for the listeners in a second. But on the reaction side, some people just have very, very little situational awareness whatsoever and don't even notice. So I can think of one reaction. I haven't posted the video yet, but I will this coming week, and it was at Starbucks. Okay, so to be clear, some Starbucks have a no gun sign I've seen, and some do not. So the one that did not have a no gun sign, I gladly walked in. I got my chai latte, and I asked the guy at the store. I said, at the counter, I said, "Hey, have you ever, the open carry laws just changed? Have you ever seen anybody open carrying in Starbucks before?" And I'm open carrying, mind you. And he said, "No, I've never seen anybody walk in here with a gun." And I said, "Really? Never? Like not even today? You haven't seen any?" He's like, "No, I've never seen anybody walk in here with a gun." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I said to him, "How about me?" And I pointed to it. And he goes, "Oh, I didn't even realize." So, I mean, this goes back to people's heads up their butt, as part of my theory. I've gotten asked, "Hey, are you undercover?" And I'm like, if I was undercover, I would not be open carrying, number one. So that was a funny one I posted. And then the Walmart, or no, not Walmart, it was Whole Foods was funny because I actually got a call I posted the video, and then I got a call a few days later from a representative of Whole Foods letting me know that they did not like the video, and they were, they didn't like it, they didn't appreciate it, and they wanted me to take it down. But I said, that's too bad. I'm not going to take it down.
Right.
So it wasn't so high up in corporate per se, but it was definitely, they were letting me know that they did not appreciate the video and the open carry, but that's okay. That's why I film it, is let's just see where everybody's at. Right.
I love it. I so wish we had more time, but I want to tell people you train civilians, obviously you train law enforcement, you train veterans, you guys are, really out there in your own community. And so tell people how they can find you, how they can find your amazing social media, because everybody needs to follow you, not just for fun tips, but just for fun. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Yeah. So my personal Instagram that we're talking about here is on Instagram is Samantha Jacqueline _ is my Instagram. And then our company is at the Warrior Workshop. And that is where you can find more on the training and whatnot. So those are the two different places.
And give us the website again.
The website is sovereignselfdefense.com.
Oh my gosh. Samantha, I cannot tell you how excited I was to get you on the show. I hope everybody watching and listening will follow you and interact with your social media. And we just thank you for what you do, because you're so supportive of our Second Amendment. You're supportive of law enforcement. You're supportive of the military. And you guys are just about as American as it gets. So thanks so much for being with us today. And if you'd like more information about the National Police Association, you can visit us at nationalpolice.org.
Every day, the brave men and women of law enforcement put their lives on the line to keep us safe. But they need our help to continue their mission. Activist politicians, progressive prosecutors, the ACLU, and the rest of the anti-police forces receive millions in donations from extremist pro-criminal elements like George Soros and woke corporations. The National Police Association is fighting them in courts around the country, including the United States Supreme Court, defending officers who are being attacked for doing their jobs. Additionally, the National Police Association works year-round to pass tough-on-crime legislation to put and keep criminals behind bars. Consider going to nationalpolice.org and donating to keep us in the fight. Together we can win. That is nationalpolice.org.